Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are doing a combo discussion Swordsoul video. So basically, I'm going to go over the Swordsoul deck and do its combos as well as its deck building. So, as you can tell, there is a lot of cards that you could potentially put into a Swordsoul deck. I've only listed 58, at least at like what you could play. There are more cards in the extra deck that you can play. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the cards. First of all, you play a million hand traps just all over the place. In Master Duel, it is very nice to play a lot of them for best of one formats. And more importantly, it is very nice to play Crossout Designator with those hand traps, because Crossout can allow you to basically guarantee your combo goes off without being under a max C. So you should probably play Crossout. In the TCG, it doesn't matter as much to play Crossout. Yes, it's nice, but you don't really have any hand traps that you need to negate. Sure, Imperm is annoying, but in all reality, you don't need to negate something like a Max C, so you probably don't need it in like the TCG. But yeah, in Master Duel, running things like Called By, Triple Ash Blossom, Triple Crossout is very common because Maxi is that big of an issue, and more importantly, it's just really nice to hit other hand traps as well with Crossout. So there you go. Yeah, you could just play a million different hand traps. I've also seen people play Imperial Order and Vanity's Emptiness. Don't play them. Just don't. It's fine. Just don't play them. But you can. You can either play the DPE package, or you could play the Halka-Fibrax package. Halk is more common, as well as potentially a little bit better. But I think that DPE, when it is on the field, is stronger than the stuff that the Halka-Fibrax Auroradon line does. And the main reason for that is because it's just a lot more difficult to actually stop something like a Verte, where it is a lot more easy to stop Halka-Fibrax. So, all in all, there's that. However, a lot of people are siding in more cards, main decking in more hand traps like Imperm and the like in order to stop things like Verte and Auroradon and the like. So there you go. Yeah, so let's just quickly do the card discussion and the actual cards within the deck. So first of all, Ecclesia. This is a card that you definitely want to be running at 3 most of the time, because what it does is going second, it can special summon itself, which is very, very nice, or just in following turns. If your opponent controls more cards than you do, or more monsters, special summon this card from your hand. Also, you contribute it in order to special summon out a Swordsoul from your deck, which is very, very nice. Now, most of the time, what you're going to go into is a Moye. You could even normal summon the Ecclesia in order to go into the Moye. Moye, on normal or special, you reveal a Swordsoul or Worm in order to special summon a token. That token is a tuner, level 4, and you can only go into Synchros while it's on the field, but notably, it is a tuner, which allows you to go into, things like your Xiao and the like. Moving on, we also have Taya. Taya banishes a Swordsoul or a Worm in order to special summon the token. This one does require a bit of setup, so normally people run it at 2, just because it's very good as follow-up if you already have a Swordsoul or a Worm in your grave. But at the start, it's not as good as something like Moye. Also, with Moye and with Taya, if they are sent to the graveyard, and Long One, if they are sent to the graveyard for synchro summons, they all have effects. Moye draws you a card, Taya sends a card, and Long One burns for 1200. Why does this burn for 1200? I don't know. It's kind of broken. It's kind of dumb. And it literally just kills you sometimes. Anyway, Long One, on the other hand, since it is a level 6, it has a way to special summon itself. However, you have to discard a Swordsoul or another Worm in order to special summon it, and then you get the token. Yeah, pretty simple, but since it is a 6 and you are specialing a 4, it allows you to go into all of the level 10 monsters very, very easily. So, very nice. Moving on, we are playing a whole bunch of Tenyis as well, because they are 1, worms, and 2, basically free special summons. So, yeah, they just work very, very well together. And since the Swordsouls summon tokens, which are non-effect monsters, all of the Tenyis can activate their graveyard effects as well. So, very, very solid. We're playing triple Adhara. This one is a tuner that is level 1, which is very, very nice. That's basically it. It can also add back cards, which is also nice. If you were to do something like special summon out your Ashana, use its effect in order to special summon out the Adhara. You know what? I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, you can basically add back a worm as well, which gives you discard fodder for Long One, or potentially Moye, or what have you. Ashana can also special summon itself from the hand, as well as you can banish it in order to special summon out a Tenyi monster, which is very, very nice. You can either go for the Adhara or the Vishada. Vishada special summons itself, obviously, and if it's in the grave or in the hand, you can banish it in order to bounce a card. This card is incredible going second, and it's still pretty good going first, but it does require you to basically use it on the third turn, and to have a token on the third turn, which isn't... It's not like the most difficult, but it's also not like the easiest, so yeah. Vishada, though, going second is absolutely crazy. And yeah, that's basically it for the monsters that you want to run. Oh, sorry, one more. Arch Nemesis Protoss, also a worm, can be searched with Emergence, and you could summon it by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes, which all of our monsters are different attributes, except for the Ecclesia and the Ashana do share the attribute. Other than that, basically everything else is a different attribute. On top of that, you declare a monster attribute on the field, destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute, and neither player can special summon monsters with that attribute. Just until the end of the next turn. Meaning, during your opponent's turn, they cannot special summon something like a dark monster. Because this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Right here. Just cannot be destroyed by card effects. Straight up. So, what you can do is you can banish 3, special this guy, activate the effect, call dark. This guy stays on the field, and your opponent cannot summon any dark monsters. You could also potentially summon, say, something like light, which could potentially lock your opponent out of special summoning out Numerons. I don't know. But yeah, all in all, a absolutely crazy card, and very, very strong in this deck. Probably gets banned. It's banned in the TCG. I don't know if it's banned in the OCG. I'm not too familiar with that ban list, but I wouldn't be surprised if it also got banned in Master Duel. Yeah. Moving on. We are playing a whole bunch of different, or we can play a whole bunch of different spells. First of all, Heavenly Dragon Circle. This card, you tribute a worm, and then add a worm from your deck to your hand. Or if you tributed a non-effect monster, you could special summon it instead, but negate its effects. This is very good for getting Tenyis onto your side of the field. And since it is a quick play, you can use it during your opponent's turn to potentially block, if you wanted to. But yeah, all in all, it's basically just a way to get a Tenyi onto your side of the field. Also, you can banish it to add a Tenyi. Just banish it, add a Tenyi. This card's very good. You can play it, but most people don't. Reason being, your deck is kind of clammed up with things like Maxi and Crossout Designator that are pretty necessary, or at least somewhat necessary, and you don't really have space for this. However, in the TCG, you have a bit more space for this card, and this card's absolutely crazy. Definitely worth considering. Moving on, for the Swordsoul cards, we have Swordsoul Emergence. Swordsoul Emergence is definitely a 3 of. The reason for this is because it adds a Swordsoul monster from your deck to your hand. It's as simple as that. It just does everything you want. It's also a Swordsoul name for all of your Swordsoul cards, so it's just very, very solid. But if you control a Synchro monster, instead of adding a Swordsoul, it adds any worm. So what you will do is you will end up using this card to search out Protoss. Yes, you can search out Protoss in this deck, which is absolutely crazy, hence why we only play the 1 Protoss. You don't need more of it, you just need the 1. Also, if it gets banished, you can increase or decrease the level of a worm monster you control by 1. This allows you to go into things like level 9s or level 7s a little bit more effectively. Moving on, we have Swordsoul Sacred Summit. This card is basically Monster Reborn for a worm monster if you control a Synchro, or a Swordsoul if you don't. Also, if it's banished, it modulates levels as well. A Swordsoul or worm monster. Just modulate the level by 1. Pretty simple. Does basically the same thing when banished as Emergence. Then we have Vessel of the Dragon Cycle. This one is specifically with the Tenyi stuff. You send a worm from your deck to the graveyard, and if you control a non-effect monster, you can add a Tenyi from your deck to your hand. Basically, what you're going to want to do with this is special a Tenyi, activate, or go into Monk, activate this, send another Tenyi, and then add another Tenyi from your deck to your hand. So all in all, you basically get all 3 of your Tenyis into rotation with this card. It's nice. Definitely not a 3 of, but is definitely nice. As for the last card, or last card that isn't just generic, we have Blackout. Blackout is very, very nice. Reason being, you target a worm you control and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy them. This paired with Protoss means that you literally just destroy 2 monsters your opponent controls by targeting Protoss. That's it. You just target Protoss and destroy 2 cards. And because it is cards and not monsters, you just destroy anything. Also, if it's banished, you get a token. It's pretty simple. You just get one of the level 4 tokens. It's pretty crazy. Also, you can only use each effect once per turn. So you can't go Blackout, target Protoss, destroy 2 cards, and then negate something with Xiao by banishing the Blackout to get a token. That's not how that works. You do have to banish something on a following turn. So there you go. Normally you can run this at either 1 or 2. Both of them kind of work. The reason for this is because drawing it's nice. It's very nice as like follow-up if your play does get stopped. But more importantly, you're just going to be searching it off of something like a Xiao or the like. All right, moving on to the extra deck. This is not how the extra deck should look. This is just cards that you can play. Obviously, we have the DPE package with Verte and DPE. We have the Halqifibrax Auroradon package with Halqifibrax and Auroradon, as well as the, obviously, main deck staples for both of those. But yeah, that's basically it. Monk of the Tenyi, you should definitely be playing 2 of this. It just allows you to use your Tenyis, both their hand effect and their graveyard effect. 2 of this is just perfect. You don't need more, you don't need less. Yeah, just play 2. Shaman of the Tenyi is rather interesting. You discard a card to special summon a worm back, but it locks you out of extra deck effects, other than Tenyi monsters, which is not that big of a deal. But all in all, the major problem that I have with this card is the fact that it is a effect monster. That's basically it. Most of the time when I'm going into Shaman of the Tenyi, it's because I have a Tenyi full hand, and it's better just to go into the second Monk like 90% of the time. Not a bad card, and the extra deck space normally isn't that tight, so I would suggest playing it. But yeah, worth considering maybe not playing it if you want to throw in something else. So as you can tell, we can go into both level 8s as well as level 10s as well as level 8s for our synchro summoning. So this opens up a lot of avenues. First of all, because we can play 10s. Did I say 10s earlier? 10s. We can make a Baron, obviously very good. We can also make Ruddy Rose, which banishes all cards from the graveyard on summon. Very, very solid. We can also go for the Chengying. Chengying is very, very solid for the Swordsoul engine because it is basically just a big boss monster that is a worm. So if you end up getting locked into worms, which Ashana does lock you into worms if you use its graveyard effect, it is very nice to just go into. It has built-in protection. You can banish cards if a card is banished, you can banish cards your opponent controls. It's just overall a very nice card. And you definitely want to go into this occasionally. It does have favorable matchups against like Eldritch and the like, because you could just banish the Eldritches and etc, etc. So very nice. I think that's it for the 10s. So let's talk about the 8s. First of all, we have Xiao. Xiao is very nice. This is definitely something you want to be running at 2. The reason being, it is the heart and soul of the deck. It searches a card, and if you used either a Moye or a Taya, you are able to chain block the search, which means that Ash Blossom doesn't stop it. So there you go. That's very nice. You can search out any Swordsoul card. On top of that, you can quick effect banish a Swordsoul or worm from your graveyard or hand to target an effect monster and negate its effects. So all in all, just a very, very solid card. You can even banish something like a Blackout with your Xiao, and then you can get a level 4 token. So that's pretty nice. And with that level 4 token, you can go into Final Mathmech Final Sigma. The reason you should consider this is because it is a level 12 that you can potentially make off of the Blackout target. That is unaffected. It's just unaffected. It's just a big dude. He just big. That's pretty much it. So worth considering. I don't think it's necessary, but it is funny. A bunch of other level 8s that you can go for. You can go for Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. This is also pretty nice, just because it is also a worm that is a level 8. So again, if you get locked into worms, this one's pretty nice. It gets big, very good. Yeah, if you already have, you know, a 10 and an 8 on your side of the field, and you can make another 8, potentially going into Draco Berserker is pretty nice. Going second, we have 2 cards that are very good. Oh, sorry. One more card for going first. You could also play Adamancipator Risen Dragite. This card, if you have specifically Moye or another water in your graveyard, it negates a spell or trap. It's nice. I don't think it's really too necessary because of how heavy monster effects are in the meta right now. So I don't think it's too necessary, but if you're playing up against a whole bunch of like Eldritch or something like that, you can consider playing it. As for going second, level 8s, we have Crimson Blader. If it destroys a monster, your opponent cannot special summon level 5 or higher monsters. This one's very good in the mirror match and also very funny. Consider playing it. Baxia is absolutely crazy for this deck. Reason being, if it's synchro summoned, you target cards your opponent controls up to the number of, up to the different original attributes of worm monsters used for the synchro summon, which is most of the time 2, unless you're using Moye to summon this, which in that case it's still 1. But all in all, you return them into the deck. You don't return them to the hand. You shuffle them into the deck. Into the deck. Absolutely crazy. Also, you could destroy a card you control and special summon a level 4 from your graveyard. You could even destroy this card to special summon out a level 4, which means Moye activation, which means Taya activation, which means Ecclesia activation, which means Adhara. I don't know why you would want this, but you could summon Adhara. Here's why you would want it. Sorry. Chengying, or Chaofeng. Chaofeng. Chaofeng is a level 9 Yang Xing. You can either summon this with an Adhara and an 8, or you can summon it with Emergence, technically, but you really want to summon it with Baxia and Adhara. Reason being, this card, when it is synchro summon, while it is on the field, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same original attribute as the Yang Xing monster used for the synchro summon of this card. The reason that this is so good with Baxia is it turns off lights. What are lights? Effect Veiler, Nibiru, and most importantly, Numerons. I hate Numerons, so you make this to counter Numerons. Also, when it's destroyed, you can add a tuner from your deck to your hand. However, this is a when effect, not an if effect, because we hate you. Once per turn, also, when a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a worm from your deck in defense position with the same original attribute as one of the destroyed monsters. So, if you were to walk over something that is, say, dark, you can special summon a Vashetta. Or maybe it's a wind. You can special summon Taya. Maybe it's a light. Ashana. You get the point. This card is really, really good, and it really helps your turn 1 boards because it turns off lights. But it's not too necessary, and seeing as how it's a UR, and this deck is rather expensive, this is a card that you can cut. Do I suggest it? No. I definitely think you should play it. It's absolutely crazy, but you can cut it. And the last card that we are playing for the Yang Xings is Yazi. This card is an SR. You need this one. This one is absolutely crazy. You target a Yang Xing monster you control and a card your opponent controls, destroy them. Or, well, not or. And when this card is destroyed by battle or a card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a worm from your deck in defense position. The reason this card is absolutely crazy is because of this last effect. The reason being is because you can do the Halka-Fibrax Auroradon line with all of your Tenyi stuff. For example, you go Ashana, special summon out, special it out, go Monk, special out, and add Hara, not with the Ashana, but just special the Adhara that you had in hand. Go into Halk, do the whole Halk line with the Auroradon, instead of using the Despot and the 3 tokens to go into something like a Baron, or using it to go into something like a Borreload Savage and the like, what you will instead do is you will go into, with your 1 and your 2 3s, you will go into Yazi. Yazi will then be popped with the first effect of your Auroradon. You will tribute the last token. You will pop the Yazi. You will special summon out your Swordsoul, whether that is Taya or Moye, and then you will continue to combo off with your Swordsoul half of the engine. The Swordsoul half, being online, is absolutely crazy. It allows you to go into your Xiao and your Baron, which is 2 negates, 1 a monster, 1 a Omni. So, all in all, very, very solid. So yeah, that's why Yazi is played. Also, just going second, being able to pop a card and then being able to pop a card as well as special summon out a monster, absolutely insane. So there you go. I believe that's basically everything that needs to be talked about. So yeah, I'm going to just hop into a deck a solo mode, and we will show you the combos. All right, real quick, I do want to mention Dangalong. I didn't have space to talk about it. Dangalong is currently unlimited in Master Duel, and it's not. Well, let's just talk about it. Dangalong on summon searches a Yang Zing card, and if it leaves the field, you can special summon a Yang Zing from your deck. So normally, what people will do with this, I'm not a big fan of it. However, it is a tuner, so you can summon it off of Hulk of Fibrax. If your Hulk does get negated, you can banish the Hulk on your opponent's turn, summon out this guy, which is okay, but not that big of a deal. But what he does is he searches 9 pillars. 9 pillars is very, very strong. What it does, it's an Omni negate. You just negate, and then you destroy a Yang Zing, which is very nice. However, unlike a lot of the other Yang Zings, it doesn't miss timing. So when it leaves the field because of the 9 pillars, also 9 pillars shuffles into the deck, doesn't destroy. So that's also very nice. But when it destroys the Yang Zing, Dangalong, off of the 9 pillars, you can special summon out a Yang Zing from your deck, not missing timing. Which normally people will go into the level 1 tuner because it is in fact a level 1 tuner. That's mostly the reason. It can also bring itself back from the graveyard if another card is destroyed, another Yang Zing card is destroyed. So you could potentially go into a Yazi on the following turn, pop, special summon, and then continue from there. I'm not a big fan of it, mostly because if you draw this card, it's just dead. And you don't always go into Dangalong. The way that you would do it is to go with your Mechaphana Beast O-Lion and a token, and then you can go into that. Or potentially you could go Adhara and one of your Sword Souls into the Dangalong, but most of the time it's just like not worth it to do that when you could just go into like a million different things. Definitely something worth considering though, because in Omni Negate that shuffles is very nice. It's just kind of a brick most of the time. Both of these are. So, worth considering. Dangalong's crazy. There you go. All right. So here we are with the first combo, which is more or less a basic combo. It starts with Moye and any other worm or Swordsoul. So what you are going to do is just normal summon the Moye, reveal the monster or Swordsoul card, and then grab yourself a token. Then you will sync these 2 off in order to go for a Xiao. Then chainlink 1 Xiao, so Xiao effect, and then chainlink 2 the Moye. Moye effect will activate, allowing you to draw a card. It kind of matters what you draw off of the top, but in all honesty, it's not as important as what you end up searching. So here, because we ended up we ended up grabbing a Taya, as well as we have the Vishuddha in hand, what we can do here is, most likely, you're going to want to go for Emergence. If you have additional monsters in your graveyard, such as, or like if you already have a Longwan in your hand or something along those lines. But if you don't have access to Emergence, or more specifically, a lot of monsters in your graveyard, just go Longwan. The reason for Longwan, let's add this to hand, is because what you can do is just discard that same monster or card that you did reveal in order to special summon out your Longwan and get its effect. So Longwan will activate in order to grab you the token as well as special summon it itself, and then you can go pretty easily into a 10. Now, depending on the 10 that you want to go for, you could either go for a Changying or a Baron. Most of the time, that's what you are going to want to go for. But yeah, we'll just go for the Baron here. We'll send these to the grave, and then you will burn for 12 with the Longwan effect after the special there. Now, we do have a Taya in hand, so that is additional follow-up. So this is a pretty basic board. There's a lot more that you can potentially do to bait out things like Imperms and Ash Blossoms, as well as just overall, there's more that you could make given more cards in hand. But overall, this is more or less a 2-card combo, and it's a pretty generic 2-card as well. So this is more or less the starting combo. Alright, so here we have more of the Tenyi focused combo. This one is a little bit more specific. You do want to have specifically Ashana and Adhara. It becomes a lot more difficult without the Adhara in particular. You could also technically do this with the Vishuddha. But basically, let's just show this off. Okay, so first you're going to special summon out the Ashana. Then this will go to the grave in order for you to link summon into a monk. Then you will special summon out your Adhara. And at this point, you go Halka-Fibrax, right? I don't really want to go over the Halka-Fibrax combo because it's pretty simple. So instead, what I am going to do, this is always what you will do with Adhara. Adhara is just that good, you know. Any other Tenyi as well as an Adhara allows you to go into your Halka-Fibrax combo. I don't want to explain the Halka-Fibrax combo at this moment, so instead what we will do is we will just we'll put this back, and then we will instead say that we had a Vishuddha. So Vishuddha, let's say we had this and the Ashana instead. So we'll summon out the Vishuddha instead, and then we can go for the Ashana here. Now Ashana, notably, locks you into worms. So when we use the Ashana, we are now locked into worms. We can't go into Halka-Fibrax. So we still go for the Adhara. We still special summon out the Adhara. But now we will sync these off since it is a level 1 tuner and a level 7 non-tuner. We can go now into Xiao. This does require worm monsters, but hey, we're all worms here. Xiao can now be activated in order to search out a myriad of cards. We could either search out Blackout here. We could search out another Swordsoul, such as Taya, which has, you know, not, we haven't used our normal, so we could go Taya in order to banish, in order to use its effect. We could also search Emergence to search out another card, and if we had another card in hand that we could potentially use with a Moye or a long one, we could also do that. Like, for example, if we already had, we had another Vishuddha in our hand, or we already had Emergence, or we had Summit, or something like that, we can do all that. At this point, if we have nothing in hand, there are basically two options. You can either go Taya to get another level 8 Synchro, or you can go Blackout to play more of a defensive. Blackout's pretty nice, but it does kind of require you to have at least some follow-up. Whereas Taya, I think, is better just because it basically puts follow-up into your hand and onto your field. Or more specifically, into your grave. So let's say we have nothing. I think it's probably better to search out the Taya in this instance. Blackout, if you have at least like some sort of follow-up, like if you already have a Taya in hand, or if you have, Vessel of the Dragon Cycle, or something along those lines. So yeah, let's just normal summon out the Taya. We will use the effect of Taya to banish the Vishuddha here from our... Actually, correction. It would have been better to search out the Emergence and then use the Emergence to search out Taya. So that way we can at least keep the Vishuddha engrave, and instead we can banish the Emergence. Now, again, if you have something in hand, you could also do this same play. Go Emergence, banish the... go Taya, normal summon Taya, banish the Emergence, and then we can use the token that we get off of Taya, and we can modulate the level of our Taya or our token in order to go for a 7, right? Which allows us to go into Yazi. This is only really good going second, though, because it allows you to pop a card your opponent controls, as well as this card, and then continue comboing. However, going first, we can still banish the Emergence, which is nice. We just don't use the level modulation, and now we can send these two to the grave in order to go into a Draco Berserker. There we go. This is not as strong, but this is with just the 2 Tenyis, and normally you'll have at least something else. Yeah. Also, Taya's effect will activate at this point, and you can send another monster to the graveyard. Most likely, you're going to want to send an Ashana or an Adhara to your graveyard. I think most likely it's going to be best to go for the Ashana here. I think it's a little bit better to have in grave, but then we can also use the Adhara. We can banish it in order to grab back the Ashana that we originally banished for the Adhara. So now we have an Ashana as a follow-up if our board does end up getting dealt with, as well as a monster negate, just a big beefy boy, as well as, you know, a monster banish, and monk. If we had hand traps as well, this would still be pretty good. Not crazy good, but it's something. You know, with just the Tenyis, it's pretty nice. Let's say your hand doesn't look the strongest, and instead you drew O-Lion and Adhara. There's still something that you can do, but man, it does look pretty bad. So, first of all, special summon out the Adhara, pretty simple, and then you're going to normal summon your O-Lion. At this point, you sync these, or you link these off into your Hulk. At this point, you can trigger your O-Lion as well as your Hulk of Fibrax. Chainlink 1 Hulk, Chainlink 2 the O-Lion. This actually chain blocks you, meaning Ash Blossom in particular doesn't stop this. Effective Veiler as well as Imperm will, but specifically Ash Blossom will not. So you will get a token due to the O-Lion, as well as you will still be able to special summon out your Deskbot 001, which is in my deck somewhere. There we go. So we'll special summon out the Deskbot, and then we will do the standard O-Lion, or sorry, not O-Lion, Auroradon combo. We'll get the 3 tokens here, and we will special summon out the 001. Now, at this point, things become rather interesting. You can either go for using you can use 3 of these in order to go for a Baron, which is nice, or you could also do this. So we'll send the Deskbot 001 and 2 of the tokens to make a 7. Which allows us to go for a Yazi. Now, I already previously mentioned this in the deck building section, but at this point, we can actually use the effect of the Auroradon, the very first effect, which says destroy a card on the field by tributing a monster. So we will tribute one of these tokens in order to actually destroy our own Yazi. So Yazi will go to the graveyard while being destroyed, and depending on what we have in hand, we can go either into a Moye, or more likely, what you will do is go into a Taya. So, Taya, now being on the field, allows us to banish a card from the graveyard. So we can banish this Yazi, which isn't doing anything, from the graveyard in order to special summon out another token. This can then allow us to go for a Xiao. So we will special summon out the Xiao by sending these 2 to the graveyard. Chainlink 1 Xiao, Chainlink 2 Taya, chain blocking. Taya can then send something like a Ashana. This is probably the best one since we already have Adhara into rotation, so we shall send the Ashana. And then the Xiao will allow us to grab out a Emergence. Okay. Now, before we lock ourselves into worms with the Ashana, is there anything else that we need to do? Not particularly. So just keep that in mind. Ashana will lock you. It is the only real lock in this deck. I think there are a few other like minor ones, like for example the tokens, which you can only go into synchro monsters with, but this one is the only one that locks you into specifically worms. But at this point we've already used Hulk, which is the main component that isn't a worm. Anyway, let's drop down this Emergence. We will search out a Protoss. There we go. Since we have a synchro monster on our side of the field, searching out Protoss is simple with the Emergence. We can then use the effect of our Ashana in order to banish itself, to special summon. Sorry, to special summon out our. We can special summon out either the Vishada or the Adhara. Kind of depends on which one you want to go for. Realistically, there isn't the best option. There isn't like something that you can. Either one kind of works. Since you are already worm locked, it's not like this guy's going to do anything. So you could potentially go into the Chao Fang, which again doesn't do anything. But yeah, we'll just summon out the Vishada here, just so that it gets into rotation. Then we will banish 1, 2. Oh, no, sorry. 2 and 3 useless cards of 3 different attributes in order to special summon out this guy. Now, we have a few options that we could go for. We could pop the Wind, which both of these tokens are, both of these monsters are, the Auroradon and the token, to lock our opponents in or out of winds. We could go for Dark, which would pop our Vishada, true. But getting Vishada into the grave isn't that bad of an idea. But it locks our opponents out of darks. We could also go for lights. We could, pop a light with the Xiao, as well as prevent our opponent from summoning any lights. Now, if your opponent makes you go first, there's a high chance that they are playing Numeron. So if you end up in this situation, it might be worth it to pop your Xiao in order to prevent your opponent from going into light monsters, right? However, if you end up choosing to go first, just choose Dark. You will send the Vishada to the grave, but if you have Protoss on the field, just choose Dark, and then and then you're able to prevent your opponent from going into things like DPE, Access Code Talker, Shureg, 3 very big boss monsters that are difficult to deal with, but more importantly, just anything that is dark. This totally destroys some things like Despia and the like. It also prevents your opponent from summoning out their own Vishada. Would you look at that? So all in all, again, this board doesn't look too assuming, but going as a follow-up, we have Adhara, we have Vishada if the token sticks around. We also have Xiao to negate. Your opponent is prevented from special summoning dark monsters, which a lot of boss monsters actually end up being dark. So all in all, it's just absolutely crazy. And if they end up summoning something that is like a wind, for example, you could just, as long as this guy's still around, you just call wind, pop your opponent's monster or what have you, and yeah, there you go. Alright, so here we have a Taya and a Tenyi combo. So Taya isn't specifically a brick as long as you have a Tenyi to pair with it. So basically, this is a pretty standard combo, but you'll special summon out the Tenyi, you will go into the Monk, and then at this point you will just normal summon the Taya, banish the Tenyi, no matter what it is, there we go. You'll grab yourself the token, and then you will go for the Xiao line. And then, again, depending on the rest of the contents of your hand, you go for either Blackout, Emergence, or Long One to continue your combos. Long One is first. Go for Long One first. If you already have access to Long One, go for a Emergence. That way you can go for a Protoss. That's your second choice, basically. Or if you don't have access to a Long One, go for Emergence. And if you don't have enough access to make a Protoss, then instead with your Xiao, go for the go for Blackout. Those are your basically your 3 options to go for. Also, with the Taya send, most of the time you are going to want to send something like an Ashana. You could also send something like an Adhara to grab back your Vishada. It's probably not worth it, but yeah. Again, it kind of depends on the contents of your hand. Realistically, though, since we do have access to a Long One discard, with this, we can send the Ashana to the graveyard with the Taya. Sorry, let me make the Xiao to make this simpler. So with the Xiao, with the Taya, we will send the Adhara so that we can add back the Vishada. And then with the Xiao, we will search out the Long One here. So we will add this to our hand. And then we will banish the Adhara to go for a Vishada to hand. And then we can discard the Vishada to special out the long one, and then long one will grab us a token, and then we can use both of those to go for Baron. And this doesn't lock us into worms, which means we don't have to go into Changing. If we used the Astronaut effect, we would be locked into worms and would have to go into the Changing. Alright, so this combo is rather specific. It does require more or less 3 specific cards. However, the Swordsoul isn't as important as the 2 Tenyis, with the Ashana and the Adhara. As long as you have a normal summon, either the Taya or the Moye, this is a very solid combo that you are able to accomplish. So, first of all, we are going to start off with the Ashana. We will special summon out the Ashana into defense position. We will use this in order to go into a Monk, and then we will use our Adhara in order to special summon itself, in order to go into a Halqifibrax. Yeah, there we go. Halqifibrax effect will activate, allowing us to go for the special summon of Despot. Despot 001 will activate. Let's just switch this guy out for this guy, and let's make some tokens. The Despot will obviously be used to do this. So, yeah, at this point, here's where the combo kind of changes. So, we can either go for the 7 of our Yangzing, which is probably the best option, or we could go into things like the Borreload Savage, if you want to play the Borreload Savage, as well as potentially a Herald of Arclight, both of which are good options. However, here, let's just go for our Yazi. We will remove all of these tokens. We will remove the last token as well in order to pop the Yazi. And then at this point, we will special summon out a... this actually does depend on what you do have in hand. Since we have Moye, we will special summon out the Taya. So just either one, you need either the Taya or the Moye, or an Emergence. Either of those 3 work. Just depends on which one you special summon first, and then you do need to remember which one that you already used. Shouldn't be too hard, but yeah, let's just banish our... we'll banish the Yazi here. Banish the Yazi, and we will grab ourselves a token. Now, at this point, it is okay to worm lock us. So what we are actually going to do is I am going to banish the Ashana here in order to special summon out the Adhara. This is important. You do need to do this while the token is on your side of the field, and the best time to do it is now. So yeah, we will special summon out the Adhara here, and then we will sync these off for a Xiao. Pretty simple. Xiao effect will activate, as well as the Taya effect, so we will send one and then search one. So we will send the Vishada since we don't have it into rotation, and we don't really need the Adhara or the Ashana for anything else. So yeah, we will just send the Vishada to the graveyard. Then we will search out ourselves an Emergence. Okay. At this point, we will normal summon Moye. Moye effect, reveal the Emergence, grab ourselves a token. Then we will sync for the Baxia, sorry. Since it's saying Baxia. Why do we go for this? We can't really use its effect. Now, technically, we could use its effect. We could pop the Adhara to special summon back another level 8. Or sorry, not level 8. Level 4 or lower, which is an option. Or, more importantly, we could use the Adhara, which is a level 1 tuner, send this to the grave as well as the Baxia in order to go for a Xiaofeng. You could either put it in an attack or defense, depends on how you're feeling. Now, our opponent is locked out of light monsters. They can't use light monsters because of Baxia. So, there you go. That was why you play Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng is very good for this specific board. It is a little bit specific, but it does increase the power level of your board, because now your opponent is locked out of light monsters. However, we can keep going. So, what we are going to do is we're going to go for Emergence here, and we will use it to search out our Protoss. Protoss, we will add 2 hands, and this will go to the graveyard. Now, I'm just going to activate the effect of our Adhara in order to add back our Vishada to hand. At this point, There's a few things that we can do, but notably, let's just start banishing cards that we do not need. So first of all, let's banish the Despot. Let's, oh, no, I meant to banish you. Sorry, my bad. We'll banish the Crystron Halqifibrax, as well as we can banish this Yazi. These are 3 different attributes, which is important, which allows us to then special summon out our Protoss. Protoss effect can activate at this point in order for us to just declare dark and prevent our opponent from summoning any darks. So now they're locked out of using the monsters effect, they're locked out of monster effects that are light. They're locked out of summoning any dark monsters, as well as we have a negate with our Xiao. Alright, let's talk about Heavenly Dragon Circle. This card is pretty interesting. You tribute a worm to either add a worm monster from your deck to your hand, or you can special summon it instead. In all honesty, this is most useful to add a Swordsoul when you have a Tenyi. So, as you can see, we have a Tenyi full hand, including the Heavenly Dragon Circle. So what we are going to do is we will just special summon, well, I mean, with this, we could just go Halqifibrax, which is probably better. But in all honesty, let's say we can't go Halqifibrax for reasons. I don't know why. Let's just say we can. So we will special summon out the Vishuddha. We can actually at this point just use the Heavenly Circle in order to just tribute off the Vishuddha. Since we actually don't want our monster to be negated, we just want to add it to the hand. So we will just use this now to send that guy to the graveyard. We could also potentially use a monk if we wanted to. I don't think it's worth it to waste a monk in this situation. So what we can do is now we can search out our Moye, and from there proceed to a normal combo. Now, granted, with this, we would need the Adhara to stay in hand. So you could say, oh, maybe it's more worth it to special the Adhara. Honestly, it doesn't really matter too much, but at the very least, now we can normal the Moye, go Moye, do the full combo from there with Moye. Or we could also, again, depending on what else we had, if, say, we already had the Moye in hand, what we could do instead is tribute off the Vishuddha in order to add to our hand a Longwan, or add to our hand a Taya, or add to our hand whatever it is that we need as additional follow-up, right? All in all, very solid. You could even add Protoss. This card does in fact search Protoss as well. So if, for example, you go Vishuddha, they, yada yada, maybe they have a hand trap on your Moye now doesn't work, or something along those lines. I don't know what you could do. You could tribute off your Moye, right? Instead, it just tributes any worm, and then searches any worm. So yeah, just, say you, I don't know. Anyway, you could search out Protoss, which is the important part. Even if you get stopped by an imperm or something along those lines. And the thing is, because it is a quick effect, also, if your opponent slaps down an imperm, you can still get the token. You just tribute off, you just quick play this, tribute off your Moye, your token is still on your side of the field, and then what you can do is you can search out additional follow-up. Like, for example, you could even search, actually searching a Longwan if you have the follow-up is very nice, because then you can go Longwan by tributing this guy, and then you get another token. And then you could potentially go into, like, Final Sigma, right? So there's quite a few options that you could go for there, depending on what your extra deck is like. But all in all, this is a very solid card. You just tribute any worm to go for any worm. Alright, so let's talk about Vessel of the Dragon Cycle. This card's pretty crazy. So let's just quickly do the standard Vishuddha into Monk. So we'll special summon out the Monk, and then at this point we'll drop the Vessel. Vessel allows us to send an Ashana to the graveyard. Most of the time this is what you're going to be sending. It's just the best send off of these. And then you can add the Adhara to your hand. Now at this point, we can just make Hal, which is very, very nice, because we're not locked into worms at this point, but we still have the activation of the Ashana in order to special summon out. So we could even do that Baxia Chaofeng line if we wanted to as well. So again, Vessel, a very, very solid card. But yeah, it just allows you to go for the Adhara here, and then you can make the Hulk, and then go Ashana, etc., etc. It dumps, it searches, it's very nice in a hand with even just one Tenyi. However, if you have a hand that is not full of Tenyis, it looks a little different. So let us set that up real quick. Let's say your hand looks more Swordsoul heavy, but you still have Vessel. That's okay. You could still get insane advantage off of this. Let's go for the Moye. We will reveal at least one Swordsoul, and then this allows us to grab our token. At this point, we can drop down the Vessel in order to send and search. This is still pretty nice because we do get to send in Ashana, which could then be used immediately in order to go for more potential plays. So we will send the Ashana, and then we can add either the Adhara or the Vishuddha, depending on what we want to do. We could also potentially even keep the or search out the Ashana and actually send an Adhara. Both options are fine. They basically accomplish the same things, which is having a Tenyi in your hand, as well as summoning out something with Vishuddha. So more or less, they're basically the same. But yeah, let's just say that we actually add to our hand the Adhara at this point. So then we just do our standard Xiao into search combo with the Moye to draw a card, as well as to search out whatever it may be. Let's go for the long one to the hand, and then we will use the long one here in order to special summon itself. And we can either pitch the Taya or the Adhara. I don't think it matters all that much. Maybe you want to keep the Adhara to add back the Ashana if you want to banish the Ashana. So we'll send the Taya here. We also drew Blackout, which is kind of funny. But yeah, we will then banish the Ashana here in order to go for... I guess it doesn't really matter all that much what we go for here. We go for the Adhara or the Vishuddha. I guess Vishuddha is probably a little bit better. Yeah, we will special summon this guy, and then we can sync these off. Oh, sorry, not yet. We actually have to use this guy's effect at this point. Otherwise, we don't have a non-effect monster. So we will add the Ashana to hand. Ashana is just a little bit better to have in hand as well. And then we can go for a 10 here. However, if we do activate the Ashana effect, we are locked into worms, so we can't actually go for Baron. We do have to go for the Chengying. However, that's not that big of a deal, because what we can actually do is send both of these to the graveyard. If you know what this says, if this card would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish a card from your graveyard instead. So with Blackout in particular, this is actually a better option than Baron, because what we can do is we can do this, and then we can use the Blackout in order to target the Chengying, as well as the two cards our opponent controls. Pop the two cards, save this card by banishing something. Doesn't really matter what we banish. And then we can actually use the effect of this as well to potentially get rid of a third card our opponent controls. So all in all, just very, very solid for what this does. Yeah, so there you go. Alright, there's one more Halqifibrax line that I do want to show you that's slightly different and is probably better, but is a little bit more susceptible to hand traps. And, well, I mean, it's Halqifibrax, so there's a lot of ways to stop it. Anyway, let's go for the Astronaut Line. Ashana to grave, special the Tenyi, special the Adhara, send it to the graveyard in order to go for... in order to go for this guy. This guy will then special summon out the Despot 001, pretty standard. And then we can go for our Auroradon. And then we can grab ourselves our Undun Claw. I'm probably butchering that, and I know for a fact that I am. Special summon back the Despot 001. Now at this point, we will use the second effect right now in order to send the Auroradon to the graveyard, as well as one of the tokens, in order to special summon out the O-Lion. Then, what we can do This is actually only really useful if you have other Sword Soul stuff that you can do, like for example, normal summon Moye and reveal and go from there. But if you do have this Auroradon or this Halqifibrax line is significantly stronger. So let's just send all of these to the graveyard in order to go for a Yazi. So we'll special summon out the Yazi, and then we will send both of these to the graveyard in order to go for a Xiaofeng. So now with Xiaofeng, since we instead used the Yazi, also we'll get a token off of our O-Lion. Because we instead used Yazi, we are now locking our opponent out of activating dark monster effects. Is this necessarily better than the Baxia line? Not necessarily, but it is a different line if, for example, this is a best 2 out of 3. You could potentially lock your opponent out of the dark monsters that they may be activating, or more importantly, it just kind of locks your opponent out of activating dark monsters. There aren't as many dark like hand traps per se, like for example, Nibiru and Effect Veiler are both lights, but things like Ghost Ogre, Ghost Ogre? No, not Ghost Ogre. Ghost Bell, as well as the DD Crow, and I'm sure there's a few more, Dimension Shifter, etc., etc. At that point, they probably would have already used them, but the fact of the matter is, you lock them out of the dark monsters. So it's a slightly different line that works, I don't want to say better, but it is different from the other one, and it does have different merits as well. It also allows you to use your Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion in order to get out a token, which then you could potentially use for additional plays. Like for example, here we can just banish the Ashana in order to special summon out another like a Vishada or something along those lines to continue our plays. We can also add back with the Adhara, so it gets you an extra token with the Xiaofeng also on the board. So again, different things that you could potentially go for. Alright, let's say that you have a hand that is gifted from the gods and your opponent has no cards with which they can activate in order to interrupt you. So, let's say you have a hand like this. You have access to Halqifibrax, as well as a Swordsoul, as well as Emergence and potentially Summit, or Longwan, or something along those lines. So, let's just begin. Alright, we already know the line here, so I wouldn't start with Adhara. Sorry, that was a mistake. I was just trying to get both of these into the grave and I misclicked. But yeah, you would go special summon Ashana, special summon Adhara, go into Halqifibrax, go into Auroradon. Sorry, we'll send these two to the grave so that you know that we did this, and then we will special summon out the desk bot as well as some tokens. It's in here somewhere. I very much so promise. There we go. 1, a 2, and a 3. Pretty simple. And now at this point, we go for the Yazi here. Yazi. Special summon. We will tribute this last token in order to pop the Yazi here. And then we can go for either a, well, depending on which one we have, you either go for Taya if you have Moye, or Moye if you have Taya. Either one works. So we'll special summon out the Taya here. We will use the effect in order to banish the Yazi in order to go for another token. And then at this point, we will remove both of these in order to go for the Xiao. Chain blocking, of course. We will send the Vishada to the grave. And then we can use our Xiao to search whatever it is that we do not currently have. Something like a Longwan here is actually very, very nice, since we already have the Emergence. So we will add this card to the hand. And at this point, we can draw into either a Worm or another Swordsoul card with the Moye, and this will basically be everything that we need. So let's go Moye. We will reveal the long one in order to grab ourselves a token. And then at this point, we could also even go for the Ashana. Actually, we need to go for the Ashana now so that we can gosh dang it, I accidentally added it to hand. But it's fine because that's what we will eventually do. So we are going to banish the Ashana in order to special summon the Adhara. So special summon the Adhara, and then we will banish the Adhara to add back the Ashana. I just skipped some steps due to misclicking. At this point, we will sync these off for a Baxia. All right, Baxia. This is a line that we've already done, but yeah, Baxia into the Xiao Fang. Now our opponent is locked out of light monsters, but as you can see, we still have quite a bit to do. So we could potentially have drawn a card off of the Moye. Realistically, we don't need to. But let's say that we ended up drawing into one of these cards, and the other card that was in our hand happened to be something like a crossout or a called by to prevent our opponent from max seeing us, or what have you, because they always seem to have it. Yeah, that'll be fine. At this point, it's pretty nice actually for us. So what we can do is we can go for the Swordsoul Emergence at this venture. We can search out the Protoss here. Send this to the graveyard. We can special summon out sorry, hold on. We will banish. Where's the banish? Jeez, why is it so difficult to banish? We'll special summon out the Protoss. We can also use the effect here. We can send the Ashrana to the graveyard in order to grab ourselves another token in order to go for a Baron. Although no, because I'm locked into worms. Sorry, I used the Ashrana here. So yeah, we actually just send these two to the graveyard in order to go for a Chengying. And then we can use the effect here. We will declare its effect. We will declare Dark, and then we are pretty good. Also, we have a Swordsoul Summit, so we could potentially even keep going with, we could special summon out the Adhara with this instead of using the Ashana to do this. So say we didn't want to lock ourselves into worms, right? For example, so we can add this guy back to our hand. We can add... or we can say that these two are still in the graveyard, but notably, we still search out this guy. We still special summon out this guy. But instead of locking ourselves into worms off of the... off of the Moye with the Boxia, let's say that we still have this guy on our side of the field. Hold on, where is he? There we go. So... say our board looks something like this. We already did the search with Protoss. We banished some things. Here, we'll banish an Ecclesia, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, just a different attribute. So, say we still have the Baxia on our side of the field, but we don't want to lock ourselves into worms just quite yet. What we can instead do is, say we had the Sacred Summit, right? Maybe we search it off of the Xiao. Here, we can actually special summon the Adhara from our graveyard instead, and then sync these two off in order to go for the Xiao Fang. So now we have the Xiao Fang on the field without having us be locked into worms. So now we just need a worm in our hand. Let's say we already had one, and then we can go for the long one, or a Swordsoul. We can go for the long one there. Now, I know that I technically used the Adhara in order to... grab back the Ashana, but oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. But what we could do is off of the Protoss, we could banish one of the Ashanas or something along those lines. Doesn't really matter what, and then we can go for the long one here. So anyway, just a way to basically prevent us from locking ourselves into worms. It's a little bit more complicated, but it does allow us to then remove both of these in order to go for the Baron. And then at this point, we don't really have any non-effect monsters, so these Tenyis that would be in the graveyard are still in the graveyard and just kind of sitting there. So all in all, this is a absolutely killer starting hand, or whatever it may be. We don't have Blackout, which is the only thing that would have made this hand better or potentially better. But yeah, all in all, absolutely killer. Negate, no light, no dark, no nothing. Plus ratio, plus your white. Thank you. So at this point, I think the best thing to do is just do some test hands. So here we actually have a very good going second hand. You might be wondering why. Well, realistically, we have one hand trap and Vishuddha. Vishuddha is absolutely crazy going second because if they allow it to be special summoned, which most of the time they will, then you are able to go into a monk, which can then put pressure onto them by, just having access to this where you could banish and then bounce a card. So absolutely crazy. For going second. However, if we're not going second, what this allows us to do is, since we do have a Moye, this is pretty nice. First of all, we are going to special summon out the Ashana specifically, and since we do have Blackout, we can actually just go Ashana here into a Monk, send this guy to the grave, and then we can special summon out another Vishuddha, as well as then we can normal summon this, reveal this in order to grab ourselves a token. Then we can go for a Xiao with these two, so send these two to the grave in order to go for Xiao. Xiao 1, Moye 2, sorry, hold on. Shuffle, we'll draw a card, and then we will search, oh, wow, long one. Then we will search out Emergence here. Since we drew the long one, that is pretty solid for us. So at this point, we can actually go for our banish here. So we'll banish the Ashana in order to go for the Adhara. Not what I wanted. That doesn't go to hand. Sorry. It gets specialed. Then we can go and sync these off into a Baxia. We could also go for a Draco Berserker, depending on which one we want to go for. Now, this does lock us into worms, so maybe... Oh, sorry, hold on. Maybe I shouldn't do that as of yet. Oh, wait, I literally actually... Oh, no, I can't. I have Monk. So, yeah, let's not do that as of yet. So we'll keep this guy on our side of the field. Sorry. Put this guy back to the top of the deck. So let's just start with Emergence. This is probably the best play here. And we will grab ourselves Protoss. There it is. So this will go to the grave now. And yeah, okay. So let's go and special out the long one, pitching the Blackout. Grab a token. We will sync these off for a... There it is, for Baron. Okay, now we can activate the Ashana. So we can banish this guy in order to go for this guy, and now we are locked into worms. Feels bad. Okay, so we will send these two to the grave to sink into... I could either go for a Baxia, or I could go for a Draco Berserker. I think Draco Berserker is probably better. Yeah, just simply put, it's just better. So yeah, let's banish the long one. Let's banish the Moye. Banish. Hold on, let me make sure. Yeah, and then we can banish the... I guess we'll banish the Vishuddha here in order to special summon out Protoss. Now, if I was playing Final Sigma, Mathmech Final Sigma, what I actually wanted to do here at this point is activate the... Yeah. I guess Protoss here is actually pretty meh. Right? I don't know, it's not bad. Just because we do have the Draco Berserker, it's not the greatest. In fact, actually, no, it's fine. Because what we can do... Oh, no. Never mind. What I could have done is, at the beginning here, I could have used Chi Xiao's effect. I could have banished the Baron. Or, sorry, not banished the Baron. If I was playing Final Sigma, I could banish the Blackout here, negate any other monster's effect on the field, probably Vishuddha at that point. Vishuddha would have been on the field. And then with this, I actually get a token. And then what we can do is we can sync off. At this point, I don't think anything changes with the overall game plan. We still basically have everything. Actually, no, I think it's a little bit more crowded. No, because we wouldn't have had Protoss on the field. Yeah. So at this point, everything should be the same, but Instead, if we were specifically playing Final Mathematics Sigma, what we do is we sync these two off for the Final Sigma, we special summon it, and then we can go for Protoss, and then we're good, right? We have Sigma, we have Xiao, we have Baron, and yada yada, you know, makes sense, and Maxi in hand. So yeah, just overall a very solid deck. I don't think playing the Final Sigma is necessarily worth it because the only real way to get it is off of a Blackout, and since we're only playing one, and I really think that it is I mean, it's nice, but it does require a bit of setup, that it's not as useful. So there you go. All right, so this hand is rather funny, but notably, it's still actually very, very good. So the reason for this is because literally what we do is we just summon out the long one, send a long one to the graveyard, and then we can immediately go into a rank 10. Level 10, sorry. We can immediately go into Baron. Right, then we can use our Swordsoul Emergence in order to search out a normal summon. So we could search out a Moye or a Taya, depending on which one. I think Moye here is probably better, so we will add this card to our hand. Then we can go for the Moye here. We will normal summon it. We will... No. Send that guy to the graveyard. We will use it to grab ourselves the Xiao. Sending to the grave. We will draw one. We will use Xiao. What the... I always draw my bricks. It's fine. We will use Xiao effect here in order to search out... we can search out a myriad of things here. Summit's actually very, very good here. And I'll show you why. So we're going to actually use our Summit here. So we will use this. We will special summon out. Doesn't really matter which one that we special summon. So we'll just special summon the Moye here. And then we will use the effect in order to send to the graveyard, send to the grave, send to the grave. But most importantly, we will use the effect of the Dragon. Yes. Heavenly Dragon Circle in order to add... I could add Protoss here. Problem is, I only have 3 different attributes in grave, so I would have to banish a Xiao, which kind of sucks. Literally, had I any other attribute, it would be fine, and I could just search Protoss here, which is very cool. But alas, I cannot. Well, I could, but it's probably not worth it. So instead, I think the best option is to just search additional follow-up. Since we can't search Blackout, let's just search out a Taya, which is... It exists in my... there it is. Okay, so we'll search out the Taya. This isn't the greatest going first. Just 2 negates, but we have additional follow-up with another level 10 with the long one potential, or we can go for Taya as well. Drawing Despot is literally just dead. It sucks. We hate it. But if our board does get wiped, we can also banish the Heavenly Circle in order for us to search out a Tenyi. So we can search out Ashana, Adhara, what have you. And that's one of the first things that we can do. So even if our opponent does end up, breaking our board, that's pretty nice. Also, if Baron is still around, what we can do is we can actually send it back to the extra deck during the standby phase in order to bring out a Moye. So if we end up using the negate of our Baron, we can just tag it out, special summon out a Moye. Moye effect grabs a token by revealing one of the cards that we had, and now we are free to continue comboing off. This is why you want multiple Xiao. Xiao is just absolutely crazy. There you go. Or if our opponent has something, we can just go into Baxia here. So there you go. All right, this one is going to be the last one, and somehow, someway, I drew Olion, which is the hardest brick. This card literally cannot be summoned from deck. From hand. It has to be summoned from deck. So, there you go. There's that. Now, technically, I could... hold on. Can I do anything with this? Not particularly. This hand is, I'm not gonna lie, not the greatest. It's not terrible, but I did draw Olion. So we're gonna start with this, right? Bait out an Ash Blossom. Let's say my opponent Ash Blossoms. In fact, they did. So now we know that they don't have it, so let's go for the Emergence now. This does take up our normal, which does suck, but at the very least we can do something. So what we will do is we will add the Taya to hand. Yeah, we need a Swordsoul monster. Might as well grab Taya. And then we will use the effect of our long one to pitch the Taya. Since we have already used up our normal, we will go for the we will go for the token here. And now we could technically go Heavenly Dragon Circle if we wanted to tribute something in order to special summon something else out, potentially. Like, for example, a worm monster. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to remove this token, and we are going to special summon out a and at heart. And now at this point, we will send both of these to the graveyard in order to go for Crystron, Hulk, Fibrax. That's right. That's right. We can go into Crystron, Hulk, and Fibrax off of that because this does a special summon. While it does negate the effects, that's not that big of a deal again or with the Tenyis. So let us see. We could either go for the Deskbot 001, which is nice, or we can go for the O-Lion. With the O-Lion, it gives us more tokens, but it doesn't actually do as much. And we can basically skip the O-Lion if we don't want to. So let's go for this guy, and then we can bring back this guy as well as 3 tokens. Yada, yada, yada. Now, we still haven't used Taya's effect, so we can still use Taya's effect. We also haven't used Moye, but we don't have any targets in hand. So we will remove all 3 of these. We go for the Yazi. We will pop our Yazi by sending this to the graveyard. Now, I could also keep around the token, which is a level 3 non-tuner, which could potentially be worth it if we want to. We could just tribute off our Auroradon instead to keep around the token. I don't know if that's necessarily as worth it. I'm trying to think what we could accomplish with the token. That is level 3. We could potentially modulate the level by banishing something like the Emergence if we wanted to, so that we could go into the 8 with just the 2 tokens. And then we keep a Taya on our side of the field. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. We'll actually send the Auroradon to the graveyard. We will special summon. Sorry, it's special summons from deck. My bad. Special summon the hello. What? What in the world is happening? There we go. Special summon the Taya. Activate the effect of the Taya. We will banish the Emergence in order to grab a token, and then we will modulate the level of it doesn't really matter which one, and then we can go into this guy using just the 2 tokens, and then we can use the effect here. However, well, this is through an Ash, so it's actually better that we do this, although we don't get the send off of the Taya, so it's like, I don't know, it's good and it's bad. You do keep Taya around, which means you can use it as follow-up if your opponent doesn't out the Taya. But you also don't get the send of like an Ashana or anything like that. But what we can do here is we can just grab ourselves a Blackout to the hand. And this at the very least keeps a monster for us to use. Where normally we would have none. Normally it'd just be an Auroradon. So we can actually search out the Blackout here, which is a little bit better just because now it's a pop 2 with the Taya. You just pop the Taya as well as 2 cards, as well as keeping the Xiao around for the negate. Or we could potentially go for well, no, actually we can't really do anything. I guess I could go Summit to special out. Nope, I was right. Yeah, just search Blackout at this point. It's not the greatest, but I mean, I drew O-Lion, and we got ashed. So, all in all, pretty good. Yeah, I hope that, I mean, this is going to be it for this episode, but yeah, I hope that this at least helped you somewhat. and you were able to understand a little bit more about Swordsoul in particular and how it functions. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated, and if you want to check out more content like this as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.